All right, let's dive into this mountain of ecology notes you've got. We're talking full-on deep dive to get you prepped for next semester.
It's amazing how complex it all seems at first, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
But once we break it down, it's like everything's connected. Like that Understanding Ecology textbook you've got.
Classic.
It's got all those terms highlighted. Biotic, abiotic.
Building blocks.
Exactly. And you even flagged a cool fact. The bluegill is the Illinois state fish.
Yeah. It makes you realize even something like choosing a state fish is kind of about ecology.
It's true. What would a bluegill even do without its lake?
Right.
No water, no food, no other bluegills to compete with.
Exactly. It shows how the living and the non-living are totally intertwined. You can't have one without the other. It's so true. It's like that whole hierarchy thing they talk about in the notes, like from a single organism to the entire planet.
Right. Each level builds on the one before it.
Like a set of those Russian nesting dolls.
Exactly. And if something goes wrong at one level, it can mess up the whole system.
Whoa, that's intense. Okay, so say you've got one bluegill swimming around.
Okay.
He's in a lake, hanging out with a bunch of other bluegill. Right. That's your population.
Makes sense.
Now toss in all the other fish, the plants, even the tiny little creatures you can't see.
You've got yourself a community.
Boom. And then you've got the bigger picture, the water, the temperature, sunlight.
Now you're talking ecosystem.
And that lake exists in an even bigger system.
Right.
Like here in Illinois, we've got prairies and forests.
So then it all adds up to the biosphere. Remember that crazy fact about it extending like 5 miles up and 7 miles down?
It really puts things in perspective.
Totally mind-blowing. This stuff gets complicated fast.
It shows just how interconnected everything on Earth really is.
Okay, but it's not just about fitting together, right?
Right.
Each piece has its own specific role to play.
Exactly. That's where the ideas of habitat and niche come in.
You know, I always mix those up.
It's easy. Think of it this way. Your habitat is like your address, but your niche is your job.
Oh, I like that.
And just like you wouldn't want two people doing the exact same job, ecosystems have the competitive exclusion principle.
Right. It's in my notes somewhere.
It basically says no two species can occupy the same niche at the same time. Too much overlap means too much competition.
Makes sense. Things would get kind of intense.
Yeah, totally. It's a driving force in evolution, actually.
Wow. So those relationships, are those always changing too, like predator and prey?
Always. It's a delicate dance.
Right. And speaking of dance, it's all about energy, isn't it? Like that burger analogy from the notes.
Ah, classic. You've got your producers, like the plants, harnessing energy from the sun.
And then the cow eats the plants. So that makes it a
Primary consumer.
Yes. But here's where my mind was blown, that 10% law. Only 10% of the energy from the plant goes to the cow.
It's wild, right?
So where's the other 90% going?
A lot of it is lost as heat. Some is used by the plants themselves. Energy transfer isn't perfect.
Man, that makes me think about how much energy goes into all our food.
It's a good reminder that ecosystems need a solid base of producers to support everyone else.
That's where the ecological pyramid comes in, right? Like the bigger the base, the more you can support higher up.
Exactly. It's all about that flow of energy.
And it's not just about energy, right? It's like populations are always growing and shrinking and competing for those resources.
Absolutely. You've got exponential growth.
Which, that sounds a little scary, right?
It can be. Think about a population with zero limits. Ideal conditions, tons of resources.
Like that wolf example in the notes, the Yellowstone one.
Perfect example. When they reintroduced wolves, the population exploded.
But eventually things even out, right?
Right, because in reality, there are always limits. Resources get used up, competition heats up. You've even got things like disease.
So that's where carrying capacity comes in, right?
Exactly. It's the maximum number an environment can handle. Like how many people can fit comfortably on a lifeboat, just as an example.
Oh, okay. That's a good image.
But even then, it's always in flux.
And we can't forget about those limiting factors. I always mix up density dependent and density independent, though.
Think of it like this, a huge wildfire, that's density independent. Doesn't matter how many trees you've got, it's going to be bad.
Makes sense.
But then say there's a disease spreading through those trees that's density dependent. The more crowded they are, the worse it gets.
Oh, right. It's all coming back to me.
It's like a giant balancing act. And then you add humans into the mix.
Yeah. My notes talk about human impact on populations, especially here in Illinois. Pollution, habitat loss.
Climate change, invasive species.
Right. It can feel overwhelming.
It's a lot.
But hey, at least plants are still doing their thing, right? Like with photosynthesis.
Yeah.
And what was it? cellular respiration?
The fundamentals.
No.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Every breath you take, every bite you eat, it's all connected to that energy flow.
It's like the sun is the ultimate source.
Exactly. Plants capture that energy. We eat plants, or we eat animals that eat plants.
And it's all powered by these processes we can barely even see.
It really highlights how interconnected every living thing on Earth is.
So to wrap this up, I guess what we've learned is ecology, it's kind of a big deal.
It is. It's about understanding those connections.
Thinking about the bigger picture, like how everything fits together, from the tiniest organism
To the entire planet.
and realizing we've all got a part to play in keeping it healthy. So thanks for geeking out with us. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and don't forget to appreciate the amazing world of ecology all around you.
And check out the show notes for links to all the resources we talked about today.